for you too. But first, today Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull was attacked from both his left and his right over gun control and over trading guns for votes. It started with this report that Liberal Democrat Senator David Leyonhjelm would make a trade. He would vote for the Turnbull government's planned Building and Construction Commission to crack down on rogue construction unions if the government, in exchange, changed a gun law. Leyonhjelm wants the government to drop its temporary ban on imports of the lever-action Adler shotgun, the version that takes 7 rounds in its chamber. Now here's the issue. The Adler is in what's called the A category of guns. There's A, B, C, D, and A is for the most easy to get guns, unlike semi-automatics. But the government thinks, well, 7 rounds in one chamber, that is a lot, can kill a lot of people. And it has banned imports until the states agree to make the Adler harder to get, put it in the B category. So Turnbull this morning refused 5 times to rule out eventually dropping this temporary ban.
I'm not going to speculate about negotiations with senators. I'm certainly not going to negotiate in advance.
But the fight was then on. Cue the slogans, cue the outrage at this supposed horse trading to weaken the gun laws that Prime Minister John Howard put in after the massacre at Port Arthur in 1996. 35 people killed by a madman with a semi-automatic. And some background here, there is a link between gun laws and safety. Since John Howard's restrictions 20 years ago, the rate of murder using guns has fallen, and so has the rate of suicide by guns, even if there's still a debate about how much of that is actually due to changes in gun ownership. So, trading guns for Leyonhjelm's vote, Labor today attacked.
This is not the party of John Howard anymore. This is not the party. They claim the mantle. They claim the mantle. They're not fit to clean his shoes on this issue.
Now, that was the attack on Turnbull from the left, but from the right at the same time came this tweet from former Prime Minister Tony Abbott saying it was disturbing to see reports of horse trading on gun laws. The ABCC, that Building and Construction Commission, should be supported on its merits.
The member for Warringah just recently tweeted, disturbing to see reports of horse trading on gun laws. ABCC should be supported on its merits. The member for Warringah is a strong man.
Now, eventually Turnbull did start to get his lines right, saying the temporary ban on the Adler would stay until the states agree to reclassify it.
That ban will remain in place until such time as there is a satisfactory reclassification of these guns by the COAG committee.
OK, that's the politics, that's the screaming, that's the shouting. Let's now look at the facts. First, none of this is actually about weakening the Howard gun laws. Howard's laws never banned lever-action shotguns. It was the Abbott government that did that. Second, Tony Abbott himself did horse trading on gun laws. In August last year, his Justice Minister agreed to make this ban on the Adler last only 12 months in exchange for Leyonhjelm's vote on a migration bill, although the ban has been since extended. So, some hypocrisy there. Third, is this Adler really so much more dangerous than guns you can already get easily? Now, a couple of right-wing gun fanatics had a race between the Adler and stock standard double-barrel shotgun to fire off 10 shots. The result? A draw. Now, true, that was not the banned 7-shot version of the Adler you saw there. That was the 5-shot version that can still be imported legally. But here's the thing. That 5-shot one you saw, that can easily and legally be converted to a 7-shot, as one gunsmith has demonstrated.
This is currently a 5-shot capacity, and to pull them apart, give them a bit of a wiggle just slightly, and we just keep pulling, and then it comes out. And with an extension piece on, they're going to sit roughly about there. So it's going to extend it by about two extra shells.
And so we've got a ban on 7-shot Adlers being imported, big fuss, big outrage. But our state government still allow the 5-shot version to be modified into 7. Well, that's strange. So the merits of this temporary ban that's so controversial, it's not even clear. But one thing is clear. It is unhealthy for governments to make deals on gun control in exchange for votes on completely different issues, to not be deciding each issue on its merits. And Labor today went after the Justice Minister, went after Turnbull himself for talking to Leyonhjelm about trading his vote.
Can the Prime Minister confirm that he has spoken directly to Senator Leyonhjelm about the ban on the lever-action Adler shotgun? And has he seen reports that Senator Leyonhjelm has told Sky News that the Prime Minister was willing to discuss the regulation of the Adler gun in connection with support for the ABCC legislation?
To all Labor's questions about this horse trading, the government gave no direct answer, no defence at all. It was like it was embarrassed, and it should be. Joining me is Senator David Leyonhjelm of the Liberal Democrats. Thank you so much for your time. Listen, why do you want this ban on the Adler 7-shot dropped?
Well, because it's not part of the National Firearms Agreement. We have shotguns all treated as Category A. We have 10-round magazine limits for rifles and pistols. There's no particular reason to treat a 7-round shotgun as any different from a rifle or a pistol in terms of magazine capacity. And sporting shooters, and there's 800,000 of us in the country, we're sick to death of this incremental encroachment on what we're allowed to use. It's as if we're treated as criminals in waiting, and they've just got to gradually take our sporting tools away from us, like if they were golf clubs or tennis rackets or something, take them away from us little bit by little bit. If it's lever-action shotguns today, it'll be something else tomorrow, and another thing next week. It's just got to stop.
But you're seeing people say, well, look, if you bring this gun, it seems to fire off fairly fast, although, as we saw, not faster over a number of rounds than a standard double barrel. Is there a risk to Australians? You know, can you see some madmen going around bang, 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 bang?
Oh, you know, you can never rule some madman getting hold of a gun and that kind of gun or any other kind of gun. But think about this. A First World War Lee Enfield 303 carries a 10-round magazine. So they go back to before the First World War. This is the rifle that was carried by our servicemen in Gallipoli and then in France. That can fire 10 rounds of a 303 projectile. Well, easily it's lethal at 500 metres, 10 rounds, and they can fire quite quickly a bolt action. That's been legal, that's Category B, that's been legal for forever in Australia. Here we've got a shotgun that can only fire 7 rounds, it's not lethal beyond about 100 metres, and they're treating it as if it's some demonic new technology, and it's only lever action. I mean, lever action has been around for 150 years. It's absurd that it should be treated any differently.
Now, look, to be honest, I'm struggling to see why this gun is so much different from the ones already out there. But that's one issue. The other issue is why trade your support like this, saying drop the ban on guns and I'll support your Building and Construction Commission over here, totally unrelated.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a bit of a coincidence that they came up at the same time. In August, when I was told that the deal that I'd made with Keenan and Dutton in relation to the import ban was going to be reversed. So in other words, I was dudded on that deal. So they got what they wanted, my vote. I didn't get what I wanted, which was the import ban being lifted. I went to the government, various ministers, including the Prime Minister, and said, we have a problem. I'm one grumpy crossbench senator. You don't need me to be grumpy. You know, you need to do something about this. It's been there for 2 months. Now it gets to the crunchy stage of the ABCC, and they're seeking my vote, and all of a sudden they're saying, OK, what do we have to do to get your vote? And I'm saying, well, first of all, there's this unresolved issue of dudding me on this deal that I had on the import ban. And then there are various other things that I've been talking to the government about that I'm not talking about. But I mean, if there'd been another bill that they were seeking my support on, not the ABCC, and I was 50-50 either way on that bill, and so it depends on what it was, the same issue would have arisen.
Well, did Malcolm Turnbull give you reason to believe that the deal was possible?
Well, I haven't really been negotiating with Malcolm around the ABCC. I spoke to him briefly today, but I haven't really been liaising with him at all on this. I went to see him, as I said,
you said you had a meeting?
Yeah, at the end of August, when as soon as Parliament resumed, I sought a meeting with him and explained to him I was an unhappy camper. So he's been aware of it, but all the discussions about the ABCC have been with the Minister or various other Senate leaders, and so he hasn't really been directly involved.
And those other ministers, did they give you reason to believe you could make a deal?
Yes. You know, the situation is that nobody can quite understand, as far as I can tell, why Justice Minister Michael Keenan is so obsessed about a shotgun which is really no different, as you pointed out, from those that are already available. What's the difference between 7 shots and 5 shots? Why is 10 shots in a rifle and 10 shots in a pistol okay, but 7 shots in a shotgun is not okay? What's the logic of that? No one knows, you know, what's the reasoning behind it. I don't think there is any reasoning. I think Keenan has got an obsession about this, and
Sure.
he's pushing this all by himself.
I think we got that. Yeah, look, I'm sympathetic there. It's just the principle here. Which of the ministers suggested to you that they were open to a deal, the guns versus your vote, in exchange for your vote?
Well, I don't think they suggested it to me. I think I suggested it to them, that there was this unresolved issue. It's been sitting there for 2 months.
Yeah, but which one said, OK, David, I think we can do this?
Well, none of them have said that. They've all talked in terms of, well, what might be possible. I have presented them with options in terms of, you know, what might be acceptable to me and to sporting shooters. We've talked around various ways to deal with this, but there was never any definite deal. But there was definitely an intention on the part of, say, Michaelia Cash, for example, to come to a happy landing where she could get my vote. And that's now less likely as a result of the Prime Minister's announcement today that the ban on imports is permanent. Now, is it permanent?
So can I explore that, David? Well, it seems to me it's permanent unless the states reclassify the gun. I think that's probably as best as I can interpret what he said today. Given that it's not then changing the law in accordance with what you believe was an agreement and in accordance with what you're demanding in exchange for your vote, does that mean you will not vote for now the Australian Building and Construction Commission?
We haven't got to that point. I've always been a bit ambivalent about the ABCC. I acknowledge that what it's intended to do is to clean up thuggish behaviour in the building industry, and I don't deny the need for something to be done in that. But it also has some very illiberal aspects to it. Reverse onus of proof, reversal of the onus of proof, and removal of the right to silence being top of the list. Those are, you know, serious encroachments on traditional rights and freedoms, and I have always been uncomfortable about it. I've never been black and white on this ABCC. I voted for it at the second reading on the two times that it's come up in the Senate, but I was always a bit uncertain about whether I'd vote for it at the third reading. I've always been 50-50. Now, if it's a lowering of taxes,
well, let me go
a
for
cutting of
another
spending, a balancing.
I know you're hot on that and free speech too, but David, let me go to the earlier one then. Last August, there were emails showing the government sending you an agreement, confirming a deal. Ministers Dutton and Keenan, it said, had agreed that the government would insert a sunset clause of 12 months into those recently passed laws to ban the importing of lever-action shotguns with a magazine of more than 5 rounds, which is this one. And in return, they said you would vote against the Labor amendments to the Migration Amendment Bill, which in fact you then did. But here's the point, David, and here's what I really don't like about this horse trading. You actually said at the time, much like with the ABCC now, you were actually broadly in agreement with those Labor amendments, which were about adding protections to customs, collecting biometric data from children and the disabled. So why did you vote against them? Just because of this other thing? I mean, it seems to me you're passing or blocking bills against your judgment simply to get a vote on the guns.
Well, no. I mean, there's some legislation where I'm strongly opposed. There's some where I'm strongly in support. And there's some where I really don't care. I could go either way. I'll give you
No, but I just gave you an example of one that you said you were broadly in support, yet you voted against on this promise of guns.
The Labor amendments were pretty trivial. The government was all animated about them, but I wasn't. They were introducing, you know, sort of a belt and braces approach, if you like, to children and their biometric data. There already were substantial safeguards in the legislation. I had discussed it with the government. So I thought, OK, well, you know, I am some sympathy for Labor's position, but it's not a black and white issue. I was happy to go either way on it. I'll give you another example.
But don't you see the issue here that we get a bit worried about how this horse trading works, that shoddy legislation, bad legislation gets blocked simply because people voting for it are on a promise to get their own hobby horse up?
Well, welcome to politics, Andrew. Welcome to politics. I got a Productivity Commission inquiry into our immigration policy, which is a very good policy, and I'll defend it very, very strongly, as a result of Scott Morrison and I doing a deal on TPVs. I thought the government's immigration policy was all around the wrong way. Reintroducing TPVs I didn't regard as a particularly major event, and so Scott Morrison was doing horse trading with me and all the other crossbenchers when he was Immigration Minister. One of the deals I got was an increase in refugees and the refugee intake and a Productivity Commission inquiry into our immigration policy. That has, I think, done very positive things for a more constructive debate about immigration in this country, and I think that's a positive outcome.
David Leyonhjelm, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.